He thought he had a piriformis problem because he felt a pain deep in his left buttock. But he was wrong, which led him down a path of doing things which kept him from healing and were making him worse. And he's not alone in this. Every day I see people who reach out to me and go get pill shot surgery to the butt because that's where they hurt. But the problem is not in the butt. And so in this video, I'm going to break down a case of an individual who reached out to me, had a pain in his butt, and was looking for advice to heal naturally. So this is the location of his symptoms. And who is this person? They're a male in their 40s, and they reached forward to grab something while they were cooking. They felt a pop, which dropped him, in this case, to his knees. So maybe you've had your back go out on you, and you know the intensity of symptoms and how sudden that can happen. And his problem was that, well, I want to be able to do things again. I want to be able to do sports, and I want to be able to do hobbies, but I just can't because it hurts too bad. But he's got bigger problems. He can't get out of bed first thing in the morning. Getting out of a car is a real challenge. Going from a sitting to a standing position causes stiffness and causes him to be bent over, feeling like he's in his 80s when really he's in his 40s. Simple things like putting on his pants or maybe brushing his teeth. Sneezing or straining can increase the symptoms. And again, first thing in the morning is the worst. And you can see here his top 3 yucky, or what I call painful motions. So he has a painful back bend, which causes him to feel pain in the butt. So he's bending his back, he's moving his back, he's not moving anything in his butt, but it causes a shot of symptoms to the buttock area. We call this referred pain. And when he raises his left leg, his painful leg, that causes an issue. And interestingly, when he raises his good leg, his pain-free leg, it causes him to feel pain on his left side, in his left glute. We'll talk about what that means in a moment. And so we had him go through some simple self-movement tests. These were his painful motions. And we'll talk about why this is important to note here. He had other pain-free motions, but this was one to note. He had a pain-free, what we call figure 4. So he could get into the position where he needed to put on, say, socks or tie his shoes, things like that, and this was not really a problem. And then when it comes to things that made him feel better, that make him feel better, walking, it seems like, even though walking is painful first thing in the morning, it seems as though he is able to kind of walk things off, and that walking may help kind of minimize, not eliminate, but minimize some of the symptoms. So that's the problem. What has he tried before? Well, PT exercises, including some basic core strengthening, press-ups, because he had heard that maybe this was a back problem, and then some nerve glides because maybe it's a nerve problem. And of course, he's doing the standard things like figure 4 stretches and I think a bridge as well, or something like that to address the piriformis issue. So that's what he's tried, and it has failed so far. And actually, as you'll see in a moment, it's what I believe to be something that's keeping him from getting better. So one major mistake that he's making is that he's starting with exercise. And so you want to think of exercise as like water on a fire, all right? So exercise, you could say, equals water. I see movement as medicine. You can think of medicine as pouring water on a fire if things are inflamed or irritated. But you can pour all the water you want on a fire. If you keep pouring gas on the fire, well, then the fire is not going to go out, right? So if you've got a fire here and you keep just dripping gas on it, then the water won't work. The problem will just perpetually come back. Treatment will work temporarily, but then by the time he gets home, and by the time he wakes up the next morning, and by the time he sits for too long and tries to get out of his car on the way home from the appointment of, say, the PT office or the chiropractic office, the problem will come back. This is why I'm a fan of teaching people how to become pain-free naturally versus treating people. Teaching, giving people the knowledge, tools, and understanding to become pain-free, not fixing, all right? So starting with exercise, the last thing that I would do, he's had symptoms for 7 days, which means he's likely in what we call an acute or inflammatory state. And so the last thing you want to do when you have a fire that is blazing and red hot is start to play with the fire. He's got multiple painful motions, and so the worst thing that he could do is start with exercise. Also, consider the exercises he's doing, such as the press-ups and the nerve glides, are just recreating his yucky motion. So if we go back up here and we look at what his painful motions are, you can see that this right here, a painful back bend, essentially is a press-up. So that's him doing a press-up. Or if he's doing nerve glides on his back, kicking his leg up and down, you know what a nerve glide is, then him doing this is basically just recreating this painful leg raise, whether he does it on the right or the left side. So he's doing exercises not only that are too early at the wrong time. First thing you need to do before you play with fire is just kind of get it to calm down. Otherwise, your marshmallows get burnt, all right? But then he's doing exercises which are his painful motions over and over again, expecting that they're going to work. So not only that, but he's also doing many different exercises. You could say starting with exercise, and then he's just doing too many. And why does this matter? I mean, if you're mixing random ingredients together in a bowl, don't be surprised when things don't turn out as you had hoped, right? So he's just not being scientific, and it's going to cause confusion. And again, he's throwing kind of many rocks in the water, especially given how acute his symptoms are and how much pain he's in. And so exercise just too many, too much, too fast. So that's the error he's making. And I see this commonly. So if you're in a high pain state, do not start with exercise. It's like the last thing you would want to do, all right? Treating his diagnosis is another sort of mental trap, because what we know is that the beliefs informs one's actions, which inform one's results. And so if you're not getting results that you're looking for, rather than changing the exercises and the actions and doing lots of different treatments, consider that your belief, in this case, maybe the diagnosis or the thing driving the symptoms, may be incorrect. For example, if you believe that it's Piriformis Syndrome, you'll do figure 4 stretches. You'll do bridges. You might do some nerve glides, because I've heard that the piriformis can irritate the nerve, things like that. But he also isn't sure if it's a back problem. And so if you believe it's a back problem, then you might do things like press-ups and bird dogs and core strengthening and all those different things. And again, because you're mixing all this stuff together, mistake number one, you won't actually know what's happening or what's working or what's not working, which just then ends up being a liability and a waste of time. But you will make yourself worse, right? And you will box yourself in, because let's just say that he goes with the diagnosis of it being a piriformis problem. Well, then he will only do things which make sense for Piriformis Syndrome. But maybe the best thing for him is to not do anything on the painful side. Maybe he should be treating the pain-free side. So if he does want to do exercise, but things are really hot and bothered in the left butt cheek, maybe he would be best just to start to move his body in a way that allows him to feel safe and move his right butt cheek, meaning stretch his right side. An indirect way to kind of dance around the fire without getting burnt. Now, this might sound kind of crazy, especially, right, if you're bought into this at being a piriformis problem, because you're saying, well, Charlie, you do know that pain's on my left side. Why would you be doing something on my right side? Because now we're stepping away from a medical diagnosis, and we're trying to get him away from treating his medical diagnosis, and instead treating his symptoms and his movement diagnosis. The things that make him feel better, the things that make him feel worse, so that he can finally solve it. So those are the big mistakes that he's making. And here's some thoughts and kind of a pattern that is very clear at this point. So he clearly falls into a disc pattern. So talking about diagnosis, it is likely a disc problem with a high degree of certainty. Why? He was reaching forward. We know when we bend forward, we tend to increase the pressure on the discs in the spine. So if this is, these are the bones in the body, in the back, and when we bend forward, this is the disc here, we tend to, through bending forward, increase the pressure towards the back side of the disc. So reaching forward, and he felt a pop. Disc is something that often recreates that pop sort of sound or feeling, immediate feeling of symptoms. He felt the immediate pain. Age, we know that people who are less than 50 years old tend to have an increased probability or chance of it being a disc as the cause of their back, butt, or even leg pain. He has a painful back bend, so he doesn't have any back pain, but when he moves his back, when he flicks that switch of the back by moving it backwards, he can recreate the symptoms in his buttock area, which tells us it's not a butt problem, it's a back problem. This is a simple test you can do if you have a pain in the butt and you are torn between, is it some other problem or is it a piriformis problem? Well, if you move your back and you don't move your piriformis at all and it recreates the pain that you feel in your piriformis or in your deep glute, then it is a back problem. In this case, it's an upstream problem in his back causing referred pain downstream into his buttock. He has a straight leg raise on his good side. That is painful. In other words, when he raises good right leg, remember pain's on his left side, his right side is the good side. When he raises that leg, it causes him to feel pain in the left buttock. We call this a positive crossed straight leg raise. It's highly diagnostic for a disc problem. He has pain with transitions. Yes, that can be caused by SI joint problems. We'll talk about that here in a second, but commonly or classically with disc issues. Pain is worse first thing in the morning due to what I call, or what we call, a diurnal pattern, whereby there's this 24-hour cycle of increased kind of pressure and or fluid within the disc. So throughout the day, discs sort of dehydrate because we have gravity, we have the day, we have just compression and load on the spine as we move throughout the day. And then when we lay down at night, the sponge, if you will, as we take pressure off, it starts to reabsorb. In this case, the disc reabsorbs, it rehydrates, which makes it more sensitive to strain first thing in the morning for many people. Sneezing, an increase in intra-abdominal pressure. We call this a Valsalva sign or Valsalva maneuver, where coughing, sneezing, straining increases the pressure in the abdominal area, which can increase pain due to disc problems compared to other problems. And he doesn't have any weakness, which is great because it tells us that his disc is really angry, but he does not have a pinched nerve or something like that because his nerves are functioning. Now, we know it's not Piriformis syndrome again because when he moves his back, it causes pain in the butt. And he does not have pain when he moves his piriformis or when he does the figure 4 motion. Remember, that was a yummy or a safe motion. And walking makes it better. If it's a muscular problem, a piriformis muscle problem, walking should strain the muscle. Basically, the law of the muscle is that, hey, if there's a muscular problem, then it should hurt when you stretch it, figure 4 stretch, and when you contract it, such as when you're walking or going upstairs or running or jumping or weightlifting, something like that. This actually makes him feel better. And we can be pretty confident that it's not an SI joint problem because we don't have to move his SI joint or his back at all to recreate the symptoms in his left glute. We can simply just raise the good right side and leave everything alone on the left side and cause him to feel his symptoms. Sure, a painful back bend can be a sign of an SI joint problem, but a cross straight leg raise, raising the good leg and feeling pain in the bad side, that is not a sign. All right, kind of rules that out. Now, here's where I'd start. So first thing we need to start with is not exercise. So I'm going to be clear about that. The last thing we would begin with when this person has symptoms that are really acute, recent, fire is burning really hot, is not exercise. Because as the old saying goes, you cannot exercise a bad diet. And so you can run on the treadmill if you're trying to lose weight all you want, but if your environment, your food pantry, your nutrition is not on point, you will struggle and you will say that exercise is not working. Exercise doesn't work to help me lose weight. It does work. It's just that your environment is not optimal for it, your nutrition. In the case of being in pain, you can do all the best stretches or treatments or injections or whatever you want, decompression in the world, in his case, but if you do not optimize for your environment, habits, routines, physically, mentally, things you don't know yet, which are pouring gas on the fire, it won't go out. Good luck. So, not exercise. First thing I would start with is actually collecting a baseline. Now, this isn't sexy. You might say, what do I mean by this? You can't manage what you don't measure. The first thing you do if you're trying to start losing weight or starting with a resistance training program is you start by seeing where you're at. You objectify your current situation such that then you can tell if what you're doing in a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year is moving you closer to your goals. So we've got to start with a baseline. Now, what do I mean by this? So what I like to do is I like to take the top 3 painful or yucky motions and the top 3 triggers, meaning activities, habits, things which are increasing his symptoms, the known variables which are making him worse. So in this case, it would be a back bend, it would be a leg raise on the right side, and it would be a leg raise on the left side. And I use this scale right here. So I would have him do 1 rep of each, and I'd recommend that if you have a painful motion, you score and record it and put a date on it, all right? So low, if it's low yucky, not that bad, 10, 20, 30, medium, high, you just give it some number. So let's just say his back bend was a 50, his leg raise was a 60, and his other leg raise was a 70, something like that. And his trigger, out of bed, that's what that stands for, in the morning, and maybe that was an 80, because that's like the worst time. And then putting on pants, maybe that's a 60. And then going from a sitting to standing position, maybe getting out of the car. Again, just pick 3 things. We need some numbers. This doesn't have to be perfect. And maybe that's a 50. And so we could do some basic math here, and we could add this up, and he would come up with some total score. Now, the reason this is useful is because now we can see week to week if what we're doing is working or not working or leading us further from getting better. So I would just ask him record these numbers once a week. It takes about 5 minutes, roughly at the same time, and again, record his scores. And if the numbers are going down, then what he's doing is helping. If the numbers aren't moving, then we should change. If the numbers are getting worse, then that's a sign for us that we need to look deeper and or change what we're doing. All right, so that's where we would start. Also, remember I said you cannot exercise the bad diet. So what this means is that we would optimize the healing environment. Morning is his worst time. So if this is a graph of pain over time, right, he's okay at night, and then whoo, it spikes in the morning. So what I would be doing is I'd say, okay, what happens before the spike? So you could intervene first thing in the morning, and absolutely I would recommend that we change maybe how he gets out of bed, all right? So he doesn't love bending forward and loading first thing in the morning. We'll talk about that here in a second. But we would change maybe how he gets out of bed. But even before that, what if we could change his sleep surface? What if we could try hard versus soft? We could see what happens there for same, better, or worse. What if we could manipulate the position he's sleeping in? We need to do some more detective work here. Why? We know that he has a painful leg raise. So is he, when he's sleeping, straightening his leg out or stretching his leg in some way on his side and his legs falling across the body? Is he somehow getting into a yucky back bend, right, when he's sleeping? Not the best drawing, but you get it. These are things that we want to consider. Maybe we have him lay on his back if he prefers that, and he puts a pillow underneath his knees so that it reduces the arch in his lower back. These are the things to consider. This is what I'd be tweaking to optimize the environment and take gas off the fire. Also, where else I'd start is I would start with first thing in the morning. Walking is a problem. So I wouldn't just say, hey, go do more of that, which is a problem. But I would have him probably walk with a walker. And we say, the dude's in his 40s. He can borrow one. He doesn't need it permanently. Maybe crutches are more hip or cool or more his age. He could use hiking poles or sticks or something like that, right? At the end of the day, the point is that, again, as we go throughout the night, if these are maybe L5, the fifth bone in the back, and S1, something like that, and these are the discs, and there's fluid within the disc. And one of the problems, because of the pattern we talked about earlier, is that when he loads this, he puts compression through this disc, which is all plump, first thing in the morning. Well, if he uses a walker, he can start to gradually kind of titrate the load such that maybe all he needs to do is for the first 10 minutes use the walker, and then it allows him to prevent this spike and not pour gas on the fire and start things off, quote unquote, on the wrong foot every morning, but it allows things to calm down, and then he gets started off on a better foot or on the right foot, so to speak. All right, so those are just some things to consider. And then walking throughout the day after that has happened might be something that we could use as medicine. Remember, he said that, hey, walking seems to be helpful. Not first thing, but we could chunk the walking and snack on it. Use it like a movement snack or a movement pill throughout the day. So instead of him just sitting and working throughout the day, all day, we could say, hey, every hour go for a 5 or 10 minute walk to just kind of increase the hydration. Motion is lotion, rest is rust kind of idea. And just, again, give a positive input throughout the day. Those are the big things. So we could talk about more, but that's the gist. What I'd expect within 1 week. So within the first few days, ideally. The morning is much better, right? So symptoms are much better first thing in the morning. Things are calming down. Within 1 week, we should see that all of his scores, remember, can't manage what you don't measure, are getting better. And I would expect that within 6 weeks, if we do the right things, that he'd be at least 75% better. And then as far as getting back to hiking and biking and running and all those sports and hobbies and things that he wants to do, I would expect maybe 8-10 week time frame, 12-week worst case. Because remember, you not only have to calm things down. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You have to have a plan to get back to full speed so you don't make things worse. And the beauty of following a systematic scientific framework like this, by doing one thing, not a million things, by the way, my guess is that in order to get out of pain, he will need no exercise. Instead, 80% of his results will come from taking fuel or gas off the fire, optimizing his healing environment physically and mentally, and allowing his body to do what it's meant to do, which is heal. And then, when we get back to things, we can talk about a little movement monitoring system so he knows how to prevent it and how to get back full speed safely. So, hopefully that was helpful, this case breakdown. If you have any questions, let me know below. Otherwise, if you're curious as to the most likely cause of your symptoms, because again, if you get the wrong diagnosis, you could bark up the wrong tree and spend a ton of time, energy, money doing the wrong things, then check out this other video where I walk through a complete flowchart for people who have a pain in the butt. Thanks.